I used to jerk off 3 times a day. I know that's one hell of a way to, open a video, but I used to jerk off 3 times a day, every single day. Just 6 months ago, I used to jerk off 3 times a day, every single day, and to the point that I'm gonna go into a bit of gore detail here, so if you don't want to hear this, you just click the mute button for a while, or skip to the next section. No, even though this is important, but just hear me out, because you can probably relate to this if you're watching this. I used to do this to the point that, you know how normally you have like this thick fluid and it shoots out, it's like a volcano erupting. But when you do it too much, it's pretty much just like a candle, like from a candle when I forgot the exact name for it, but what's the thing that's like the sort of clay that's around the candle, and it just kind of melts and just drips down. That's kind of how your bodily fluids look like if you do it too much in one day. I was addicted to beating my meat, so to say. But not just that, I was addicted to the ography that came with it. I was addicted to the hub. And I saw no problem with it, because I started this at the age of 13. At the age of 13, I started doing this, and I saw no problem with it. And the world doesn't see a problem with this either. Now, I am not a master at not jerking off. And in fact, this video is not even about how. I'm not even going to give you advice on how to stop doing this, because I still have a long way to go. Right now, I can hold like 1 week, 2 weeks without doing anything, no ography and no beating meat. But I'm not an expert at all in this, so I'm not going to make a video about this yet. But I did want to make a video about why you should consider and why you should stop beating your meat, which is what this video is about, and I'll go in depth about all of it. So right now I can go about a week, 2 weeks without doing it, and then I really actually try. I do think I can go for about a month, which is, if you think about it, that's insane progress from, once again, I'm not a master, but compared to 6 months ago, 3 times a day, to now being able to hold off just a week, that is amazing progress in my eyes. Any progress is progress, and you're probably going to relapse with doing this sort of thing, but that's okay. I'm going to go further in detail in this entire video. And the thing is, if there was nothing wrong with beating meat, I would have happily indulged. I would have happily done it. But the reality is that it's an instant gratification activity, and it's just bad for you overall. Some people there's a YouTuber that said, why criticize things that people enjoy? There are people on earth who enjoy touching little kids. I don't know what kind of person you are, but I wouldn't go to these people and say, why are you criticizing these people for doing things they enjoy? I know not everything people do that they enjoy is inherently good. In fact, it most likely isn't, because that has to do with dopamine, and instant gratification makes you feel good when doing it, but in the long term, it's awful. And on the opposite side, and on the contrary, the things that are actually good for us don't feel that good at all when doing them. No, you might hear that sneeze. That's my grandpa in the background. I'm gonna go straight into the video. So I want to start off with porn. So the ography, the hub. And I want to just what your brain looks like on porn. So what your brain looks like on porn when we look at MRI scans. This is why porn is so bad. That's what we're going to get into. So your brain on porn, when looking at MRI scans, your brain looks about the same as it does when on other addictive substances such as cocaine. You can see that the way the brain looks is almost in the same. It activates like the same, not should I say neurons, or it activates the same kind of dopamine in us. It gives that the same dopamine rush almost comparable to an actual drug addiction, like a cocaine addiction. That alone, that fact alone, is real bad. And you might try. A lot of studies, most studies show that porn is just scientifically proven bad for you and bad for, your mental health and your physical health. And you might try and dispute this by bringing up articles that you found, but I guarantee that those articles include someone called Nicole Sprouse. Articles that include Nicole Sprouse, the studies that she's done are, let's just say, they are very easily to take apart, look at critically and factually, and they don't make any sense at all. One of her studies, for example, had no credibility and didn't even have actual, what's the proper word? Didn't even have a control group. One of her studies didn't even have a control group, therefore not having any credibility at all. Then she released a second study which did have a control group, but the information was misinterpreted and was also misrepresented, because she did brain scans using an EEG, but a EEG is nowhere near as effective as an fMRI scan when it comes down to scanning the brain, especially when coming down to these kind of addictions. So when you bring up things that include Nicole Sprouse, just know that these can be easily disproven, and you still didn't gain a point.
So here's what it might look with an addict, a cocaine addict. They would have a much higher EEG reading for a picture of cocaine than they would for looking at a picture of a sunset, a chair, a dog, a horse, whatever. And then they say, wow, that looks like cue reactivity. You're paying more attention. Here is Steal It All, Nicole Prouse's study. The top line is porn. The second one in sort of purplish blue is sexual. This is skydiving or mutilated bodies, etc. So it was a lot higher for porn. In fact, Steele et al.'s brain activation pattern mirrors the spikes you see when drug addicts look at pictures related to their drug addiction. So look at that difference between normal and porn images. Nicole Prouse completely misrepresented her findings to the media, and everyone bought it, and they still buy it today. No one seems to read studies anymore. Here is John A. Johnson, a senior professor at Penn State, whose specialty was analyzing study methodology, and he commented underneath this interview with Nicole Prouse when the study came out in 2013. He says, "My mind still boggles at the Prouse claim that her subjects' brains did not respond to sexual images like drug addicts' brains respond to their drug, given that she reports higher P300 readings for the sexual images, just like addicts who show P300 spikes when presented with their drug of choice. How could she draw a conclusion that is the opposite of her actual result?"
Now, why is porn an addictive substance? It is very simple. It is the dopamine release that it gives you. As I said, in the MRI scans, it's very clear to see that the dopamine release is, on the almost the same level as an actual drug. The problem lies that the world doesn't perceive porn or orography or fapping, for that matter, as an actual addiction or a problem. It is perfectly normal to do these kinds of things as a teenager. It's just called experimenting. But the thing is, it's very different from how it used to be. It was never good, but just the way how accessible this is on a wide scale right now, it is horrible. Because at least in the past, like 70 years ago or 20 years ago, you only had pictures, and those pictures had to load, and they weren't very accessible. Now you have hundreds, thousands of sites that have full, like 20-minute, 40-minute long videos of just constant nudeness flashing before your eyes. It has actually been proven that when not contestants, but when a control group had to watch, that a control group had a larger dopamine rush in the brain when looking at fake boobs, like ography boobs, or nudeography, or an actual nude person. There was a higher dopamine rush and release when viewing the ography than there was when seeing an actual nude person. This is how much dopamine release there is when watching these things. So I hope I have been able to convince you about the fact that porn is addicting and porn is in itself is bad. But what about quit? Why stop beating your meat? Because this is porn, and okay, porn is bad, but I can still do this without porn. Now, some of you might already be saying, "Oh, you shouldn't fap because fapping. If you don't fap, it increases your testosterone." That is not a proven benefit. There is no proof that your testosterone increases when you do not fap. But it's not about that fact. It's empirical evidence, or no, imperial evidence is not the only thing. It doesn't matter that there's no imperial evidence that your testosterone levels don't rise when you don't fap. It's not about that. It's also about a personal anecdotal evidence. If you just decide to not fap and you notice that the results are there and you feel better after doing this, then that evidence is worth more than any evidence, scientific imperial evidence, could ever give you. Because if you feel good doing this, then there's no imperial evidence or science that can tell you to stop doing this. Now, I know that might sound contradicting to my first point about not everything that feels good is actually good. When I'm talking feels good on a physical and mental level here. Fapping feels good in the moment, but afterwards, we all know the term, if you are a, meat beater, you know the term post-nut clarity. This is already a sign of, the dopamine rush slowly but surely going away and going into a pain mode. Because after a large dopamine rush, there is a moment of pain because you will have below baseline levels of dopamine because you had such a high peak just before. Meanwhile, something like this is actually good for you in the same way eating vegetables is, because you will feel good afterwards. It will be difficult to do in the moment, but you'll feel good afterwards. There's a delayed gratification. That's the term we use for it. Now, while there is no empirical evidence that your testosterone levels increase when not jerking off, there is evidence that suggests that your testosterone increases when you're an addict and you quit beating meat and porn then. Because when you're in an addictive cycle, in this addictive cycle, you'll gain stress, and stress kills testosterone. So when you get rid of this bad habit and get rid of this addiction, your stress will go down, your stress levels will go down, and therefore your testosterone will be higher as well. So if you're an addict, your testosterone will actually kind of increase a bit because you'll no longer have that stress phase. It's a bit like, because you're an addict, you're constantly hungry for this addiction. We'll get into that later. Now, so most benefits. Okay, so what you want to do, of course, is a dopamine reset, where you just reset watching porn and jacking off. You just do it so your dopamine levels get to baseline or normal levels again, and your stress levels will be to normal again as well. So pretty much every benefit for Nofap is locked, so to speak, for people who are really addicted. Yeah. So the benefits are pretty much locked for people who are addicted, but let's be honest, you most likely are addicted because porn is so easily accessible right now in this modern age for all teenagers, even kids. It is so easily accessible and it's so full of dopamine. Your brain is getting raw dogged on dopamine when watching porn. You are most likely addicted. And even certainly if you're watching this video, it's a sign that you want to kind of stop beating meat, but you want to find reasons why. So you're most likely addicted. So congratulations, these benefits will be for you. Recently, a friend of mine, Zone, commented on one of my God Journey videos and told me that I should, on how to make Nofap easier, is, well, not technically Nofap, but so he suggested to quit porn, but still, kind of continue jerking off in the meantime. But I don't want to really do this because I don't jerk off without porn, and doing that will actually only increase my urge to watch porn again, because now I've kind of feeded into my hunger. You've got to compare jerking off like eating sugar. When you eat sugar, you'll get more. If you don't eat, you stay away from sugar. For example, I've stayed away from sugar for a long time now. I don't have the urge to eat sugar anymore. But if you have the urge to eat sugar, you indulge in that sugar, you will grow more hungry for sugar. You can compare it to the beast of Guts from Berserk. I don't know if you know that, but it's kind of the Berserker. It's the how do you call it? It's like this dog. I forgot the exact name for it, but it's kind of like that. It's the beasts inside Guts from Berserk. What this beast does is, every time Guts kills and has a taste of blood, the beast grows larger, and Guts will be more consumed by this. So in other words, the more he indulges in killing people and fighting, and fighting with rage, the more he gives into the beast, and the more the beast will grow stronger. It is the exact same thing with sugar, and the exact same thing with jerking off. Now, so this also disputes the some people say on the internet that if you do Nofap, you will grow more. You'll grow more horny. So you gotta you compare it to walking to a supermarket when you're hungry. If you walk into a supermarket hungry, you're not gonna be rational. You're gonna start just buying junk and buy the chips and all that stuff. Now that is not true, because this is under the assumption that your power level of horniness, so to speak, keeps powering up and keeps leveling up. This is not the case. It will in the beginning, but afterwards, you'll just get rid of that. In the beginning, it will be hard to quit jerking off and porn. And you will grow more and more, because your brain will sense that you're no longer doing this certain thing that you used to do, because it was almost, it's like, because it's a bad habit. It used to be a habit for you, and our brain knows habits because it repeats these habits. So when it notices that this habit is now gone, it will grow the urge for this habit. So in the beginning, it will be very hard to stay away from this. But if you get over that, now the habit has turned into not jerking off, and therefore you will actually be less horny than the person who jerks off, because once again, it's the sugar analysis. The person who jerks off constantly will be more horny than the one who doesn't, because they constantly feed into their horniness. So no, you don't grow. It's not like your balls are going to explode, okay? It's not like the testosterone and the cum just keeps filling up your balls until the end of, and that doesn't happen, okay? So, what I suggest, but you can just also not jerk off. That's also not, because you're just setting yourself up for failure then. You will always have some kind of relapse. So I don't suggest to go full monk mode for the rest of your life and don't do it at all. But I suggest to have like periods of nofap. Just periods of long time of just monk mode nofap, and then you do it one time. If you can hold it out longer, of course, go ahead. But you're just kind of setting yourself up for failure, because eventually you will kind of give into the hunger that grows inside of you. And it's normal, because if you don't count the days as well. These are like kind of tips maybe, but don't, I suggest having like periods of nofap. So stop beating your meat, because it drains your energy levels. If you'll never be, I just feel so revitalized and so energized after jerking off. You feel like you feel disgusting. I don't know if you had the same thing, but every time I, beat meat, I just felt disgusting. I felt sweaty. Like I felt like a fucking gremlin. Like I felt like an actual gremlin. I felt sweaty. I felt disgusting. I felt like I needed a shower. You just feel drained and filthy. So, just stop beating me, because it's addicting. It will make you a faggot, because you quite literally just lose brain cells doing this shit. Just once again, look at your brain. Go back to the beginning of the video and just look at the photo of how your brain looks like on this shit. So you're getting addicted. You're fucking up your brain. You're losing all your energy. You're gaining stress. And it's not beneficial, because it will feel good in the moment, but the long-lasting effects are, very depressing. Oh, as well with porn as well. Long-term, there are actual casualties. Not like death, of course, but there are consequences to jerking off with porn. Some people will have a lot of anxiety because because they watch so much porn. They objectify women to a point that they're kind of just sex objects to them. That's because you only see women in this way in these videos, so you kind of just objectify women and don't see them as actual people anymore, which you'll grow in anxiousness, and that's just bad for you as a person. Some people, they'll have erectile dysfunction because of jerking off too much and watching too much porn. It's also just, it might not increase your testosterone levels, but it never feels good to actually just bust a load. It will feel good for like a second when the bust happens, but every single second after that, you'll just be like, fuck, why did I do that? I feel so bad. And because hoarding is such an evil thing, man. If you're actively fapping, you're just, wow. Like, where our brain goes in these moments, that is just, the world wouldn't want to know. So these are just some reasons as to why you should stop beating meat. And I promise you, right here, right now, I promise you that once I get better results from nofap, and I find new ways to do nofap, and I've actually become way better at it, I will make a video on it. I will make a course or a guide on it. I promise you that. But for right now, that's not the case. I just wanted to tell you why you should stop beating meat. This was Tempest Vanguard once again. A new video tomorrow. Signing off.